I'm Vibhor Bansal. I'm an engineer by education and I'd like to think I'm a problem solver by profession.
My name is Chahat Vasal. I am also an engineer, but like most engineers, I've not done engineering as a career.
I'll give you an anecdote from my undergrad. So I did not want to do engineering, but as all Indian parents
Majority
say,
of Indian engineers.
you have to.
Basically joined in the founder's office when I started off. And I realized on all investor calls, he used to do his t-shirt like this and it had an ISB logo here.
A lot of what we talk about in class, I have done that. I just didn't know that there was a label to it or there was a term for it or this is what it's called, right? You're like, oh, we tried into this vertical, this didn't work out, this, and then you're like, oh, now I can say it wasn't our core competency, So that's why diversification was not good for us.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the ISB Show. Today we're doing episode 6 and we have in the studio two very bright and fun minds, Chahat and Vibhor, both of whom have an entrepreneurial background or are going to have an entrepreneurial background here on. I am Samarth. I am from Chandigarh. I have an economics background. I worked at startups, loved my time at startups, realized that I wanted to do something in a similar space, had the buffer of a while period mid, decided I wanted to experiment, started up myself, and now I'm here. Why don't you tell me about yourselves?
Must to the point. Okay, go.
Alright. I'm Vibhor Bansal. I'm an engineer by education and I'd like to think I'm a problem solver by profession. I worked across different industries and different functions for the past 5 years. I've also had the privilege of building a last mile travel business before coming to ISP. And now I look forward to doing something more substantial, something that can change people's lives.
My name is Chahat Vasal. I am also an engineer, but like most engineers, I've not done engineering as a career. So I started my business during COVID. We started manufacturing teaching learning materials and therapy tools for children with special needs, particularly autism, dyslexia, etc. And I sat for my placements in college, but rejected the offers that I got and went into doing this business full time. And again, same for me, I'm a YLP as well. So the ISB admit was a good support to keep pursuing my business. And it's been 4 years and now we've been growing ever since.
Nice. So, Chahat, you say that you had offers in your undergrad, but what prompted entrepreneurship?
So I did not envision that I would go into this field, to be very honest. It was just a natural progression. When we started during COVID, it was very small scale, but we started getting small wins early on. And I just decided, really honestly, you're young, you have that time. I had the privilege to take that experiment. So I decided to continue that and just see where it goes. And we had started getting really good traction in my last year as well. And then this admit, so I had an opportunity to go for a job if required be after 2 years after getting that work ex and the ISB graduation. So I decided why not just take the chance, but I thoroughly enjoyed my experience. I learned a lot. So even now after ISB also I'm planning to continue to go into entrepreneurship itself.
Interesting. Vibhor, have you always envisioned entrepreneurship or is it something that happened for you at ISB?
I'd say my entrepreneurship comes from the fact that I love solving problems. I mostly pick up problems from the daily life and see how we can do it more efficiently. Fun fact, me and my friends came with the dark store model of Zepto before they did, but
You heard it here first.
but COVID happened, so yes. And I think it turned towards a more impactful kind of a thing by the way I've been brought up. So my father is a doctor, my mother is a social worker. So there's always been a thing of giving back to the community at our house. So that's the kind of intrinsic motivation that has pushed me to do something that not only makes me money but also helps people around.
So then my question to the both of you is why ISP? Why not you continue with entrepreneurship? Why didn't you directly jump into entrepreneurship? Why an MBA? Why ISP?
Indian answer do. Papa wanted one more degree. No, but in all honesty, I think particularly for me, for my case, I felt like again my area was niche, special needs education, early education, and then also manufacturing industry was niche as well. So I felt like I was a little bit in silos when I was working. I didn't the networking opportunities, etc., were great, but the learning I felt was a little bit more focused. I wanted to gain a much broader, a holistic experience and get to know a lot more about different people. So ISB was a great way to do it because, again, the diversity of the cohort that we keep, raving about, which is true. It is one of the biggest strengths here. And the professors who are at the cutting edge of research, which will be translated in what the industry does after a couple of years. So to get one-on-ones with them is incredible. So I think personally for me, I wanted a holistic experience, get to know about areas that I personally had not delved into through my business. So that was one reason I wanted to upskill myself through an MBA, and the degrees are different.
For me, the major reason was the networking opportunities at ISB. So I came to ISB with an idea, but I needed the right people to actually pull it off. And I feel being from an engineering background, you're mostly working with other engineers, so you don't get that kind of a diverse domain to pick up teammates for yourself. But here at ISB, as Chahat mentioned, the diverse cohort gives you a lot of options. So I did kind of explore those options, and I am glad I found a co-founder here who can help me push my idea further.
Very interesting. Do you think that MBA was the best route towards this? So, for example, like during my stint, I started my own business because I realized that there was a funding winter back in 2022, and hence there was a lack of experimentation at my workplace. So, I realized because there was a lack of experimentation, learning opportunities would be very limited because we were doing routine tasks and we were just optimizing for those tasks and trying to do them better and better. Right. So, I realized that the next level of learning came in when I started to do something myself or did something differently. And hence, entrepreneurship made a lot of sense that way. And also because I started this from scratch, there was a multifaceted learning across handling business, finance, operations, strategy, each and everything essentially in the business.
Right.
And since you started your business, there's going to be those elements across those areas as well, right? So why do you think ISP was the most pragmatic route? Why not sticking to entrepreneurship or picking up other areas in your own business? And for you, why not working at places that are similar to what you wanted to pursue and finding a co-founder there?
You can go first.
Okay. So I'd say I worked with startups as well. As much as I learned there and as much as diversity I found there, but I still feel the kind of area I was looking into was not what the company had to offer for me. So also, I guess if I continued working, there will always be a kind of a uh, support cushion kind of a thing that I would not want to leave and maybe transition into entrepreneurship. So I feel giving up on that comfort is a very important step towards moving into entrepreneurship. And probably that's why I've also opted out of placements this time.
Plus for that, for sure.
Okay, so I have not opted out of placements, but that creates a very interesting question. What are the motivations, particularly for you, Chahat, to opt out of placements and go back into business, considering that the placements are extremely lucrative at all
Yes.
top E schools?
Trust me, that question has crossed my mind multiple times, even though I was very clear when I came in that this is the path I wanted to go into. I think it's not the school, it's the culture. Everything just overwhelms you when it's that placement season time where you feel you are doing something wrong if you are not making your resumes or doing case preps and all. So I think for me, it was I had to remind myself when I was getting stuck in that cycle that this is not what I came here for. And just a little bit of a diversion, but Alums always say, like, when you're coming to ISB, it's 1 year, it goes by very fast, very hectic. So plan out your path, because everybody's journey will be very different of what you want to get out of the school. So because I was clear of what I wanted, I had to just constantly remind myself. I put a note also on
What
my
did you
table
want from the school?
that I wanted to gain exposure through, again, the network and have lots of conversations with professors. I have a new idea I'm working towards, so get validation for that, build that. And on a personal level, I came here for knowledge gaining as well. I took subjects that I would not have otherwise and that are probably not useful to me in life, but I like particularly in my work, but I just wanted to gain that knowledge. So that was that. So for me, also opting out was the way I could just cut myself off from that decision of that dilly-dally of whether I go, whether I don't. And ISB, in fact, it's one of the rare schools that provides you with that opportunity to jump into entrepreneurship or starting something of your own. So you have an opportunity for deferred placements in which you can submit your business idea, work on it for the next 2 years. And between those next 2 years, if you feel like it's not picking up or you don't have the traction, you're welcome back to sit for the placements in those 2 years as well. So it's a really great backup to have when the school supports you to venture out into doing something of your own.
Interesting.
And I'd also say, obviously, apart from everything that ISB provides you, the brand name itself will also help you a lot in
100%,
your
yeah.
entrepreneurship journey.
It opens a lot of doors.
Again, there is also the the Atrium Angels, which is a ISP specific venture capitalist firm. So I guess these are small little things that might not matter that much in the long run, but when you're initially starting up, these are things that would come in very handy.
I'll tell you of a fun incident from my workplace. So I was employee number 6 or 7 at that startup, and one of the founders, was basically an alum, and I basically joined in the founder's office when I started off. And I realized on all investor calls, he used to do his T-shirt like this, and it had an ISB logo here, very subtle. So you talk about so you talk about the brand name. Yeah, the brand name works. And of course, one of my motivations to come to ISP was similar because I realized that the network is extremely well connected and you find very relevant people. So if they can't help you with funding opportunities, they will open other opportunities for your business that you can't
100%.
open initially in the early years for yourself.
I mean, even the professors are so well connected because they have both industry and academia experience. Crazy connections, even some professors have. So, yeah, I completely agree with that.
Interesting. This brings up an important question. What stage should an entrepreneur considering coming to ISP? So, for example, you come to ISP after you started your business. You came to ISP before you started up, right? So, what stage do you think is the best time for an entrepreneur to come to ISP?
So I think there is no like hard and fast rule in it or a black and white because I think everybody's journey and stages are very different. Completely personal opinion, but I feel if you, for example, if you're wanting to start out, that is a good way, a good time to come, especially if you're very clear about it and you make sure you don't get sucked into the placement scene. Other than that, I think for me, I took that decision is I took my business from 0 to 1. Now I wanted to take it from 1 to 10. For that, I needed another level of, whether it be education or connects or whatever, that opens those doors for me to go to 1 to 10. That I would not have been able to do alone working in silos. So I think that was a decision that I came up with. But I think the PGP Pro, Max, all have entrepreneurs in different stages, different this. But yeah, I mean, if you've grown your business, you don't really need a B school too much. We learn about how to grow that. If you've done it, then you have a proof of concept.
Vibhor, what do you think?
I agree with her, and I feel that as long as you're clear about what you want to get out of the school and how you want to use the resources, at any stage you can come for your MBA here, and you can probably make the best out of it.
Interesting. So the way I was thinking about it was personally when because I was considering either deferring or not coming to ISP because the business was doing decently well. So the way I was looking at ISP was in two scenarios. One, the business doesn't work out, and then I come to ISP because ISP then becomes my worst case scenario. And ISP is a pretty great worst case scenario to have.
Lucky problems.
So I actually when I was thinking whether I should start up or not, I had a conversation on one of the YLP weekends with the deputy dean here. And he told me that I think you most definitely should start up. And for your sake, I hope that you have some sort of failures also because you bring that learning into the classroom. And he says, let's say that your worst case scenario is that your business doesn't work out. There are financial losses that you recoup because ultimately you're going to come to ISP and we're going to give you good jobs. And then you study with the best minds in class, from the best professors in class, and then you go to best companies in the world. He said, if that is your worst case scenario, I think you should dive into that scenario.
Worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's one of the best worst case scenarios you can have. The second way, and this is where I came into ISP, was how I thought about it was that does your business need you anymore or not? Or do you need your business anymore or not? So the way, like I mentioned, I started off my business with the intent of learning, and then financial gains were secondary to it. So I realized after a point in time, there was minimal value addition because what we were doing was we were launching a category, we were scaling that category, taking those learnings, replicating it across another category, right? So we realized that the value addition that I was doing to the business or the business was doing to me was extremely minimal. And it worked out best for both the business and for me to then come here and see what is it that I can take from here and add there. And those sort of scenarios.
And one more thing helps is if you have a co-founder where your business is not overly dependent on you,
Absolutely.
where that 1 year pauses it. So that helps a lot in making that decision. And also one more plus point was 1 year. So you don't lose out that much as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those factors also went into the decision.
Vibhor, I have a very interesting question for you because B schools in particular are very notorious for killing entrepreneurial dreams. They're known to be job factories. What do you think about that? And how have you survived the temptation of not getting into a job?
I think the biggest thing that kind of helped me out was that I don't really give in to FOMO. So the FOMO culture at ISB is pretty huge. So if you do not have self control as an entrepreneur, I wouldn't ask you to come here. But again, so the job was very lucrative. See, initially I did think that I'll sit into a job, do a more relevant work in the industry I'm interested in. But that was contingent to the fact that I do not find a co-founder. But if I find the right person, I don't think there's a problem getting right into it. So, yeah, just make sure you know what you're here for and focus on what you do. Your friends will be partying sometime, they will be doing case preps for their placement sometime, but all you have to do is just pass that time through. I personally wasn't here on campus during the placement
Same,
period,
same, same.
so it was pretty good for me, but I
Thanks for the support, guys.
I'm pretty sure you did not need it, but it's fine. So yeah, keep
क्या ही
focused
value add
on
होता हमारा यहाँ पे honestly.
But yes, Chahat, how do you survive the temptation again?
I think like what I mentioned, I literally have written on my desk which says startup founder Chahat because it is very easy. I was genuinely very clear that I wanted to come here and continue my journey, but it's very easy to get into that field of like, because people keep like 40 lakh ki job and all that, so it gets to your head sometimes, so I think it's like Vibhor also mentioned, reiterating that again, that you have to be extremely clear of what you're here for, and it's okay to change that, but if internally you had that conviction early on, stick to it.
Very interesting. What do you think of the curriculum at ISB?
So for me, I'd say it's a mix of both useful and not so useful courses. Like I personally felt accounting was a very good thing that I learned early on in the course because it really helps you gauge about how your company is performing, even though if you're not really that involved in the minor details. Then there are always the elective courses that you can select based on your interest. I personally made a list in term 3 itself for all the courses. I would suggest not to make the same mistake. Read the course outline, choose your subjects carefully. That's for the best. But yeah, I guess even if the subject is not helpful, I feel the professor of the course is very intellectual and well connected that if I have a certain problem in the course, they can help me out.
Yeah, ditto to that. I think, like any school, you will have the good and bad profs, the good and bad courses, etc. That's just a standard everywhere, no matter which school you go to. I think for me as well, there were courses. For example, finances was something I was fearful of. So again, accounts was a great subject. I forced myself to take subjects like smart money management, etc., so that I just get familiar with it. So it's a great opportunity. Again, depends on what everybody wants to do. If there is a specific field you want to go into, you have ample opportunity to take courses that are exactly according to that. I wanted to explore, so I was able to take very different courses, some relevant, some non-relevant for me. So again, personal journey, you have a lot of opportunity to explore different fields.
I'll ask you something that's a little counterintuitive. Why should you not come to ISP if you're planning entrepreneurship or if you're already an entrepreneur? What have you struggled with essentially?
So, for me, and I think you had asked this before and I didn't answer it, about also the learning wala MBA versus thing. So, see, at the end of the day, hands-on learning, getting your hands dirty on the ground is how you learn. वो होता है ना कि in a factory, your boss might know everything, but the technician of the machine knows the machine the most. So it's like that. I think nothing can replace that learning, whether it be job or startups. But I think this provides a very strong foundation for you to build on top of that, or to sort of understand areas where you were lacking and now how to go about it. So I think one thing that has been difficult is people tell you it's going to be hectic, you don't realize how hectic it is. So I thought I would be able to simultaneously do a lot of work in my business. That was very little I was able to do, which is fine because again, I chose to take more classes, etc. But other than that, I think I mean, I don't know if it's a should you not wala question. It totally depends on where you are at what stage in life and whether those metrics value. I think you can learn both places. It does provide a very strong foundation to build upon it later on.
Fair.
Yeah, I think I agree with Chahat. Except for that, there will also be the point of
Okay.
placements that if you're not very sure about your idea, it's a little dicey, and you come here, see the shiny, glittering job offers way above your current pay grade. I think that's something that can kind of shake your foundation. So if you're not really sure about your idea, but you would still want to go through with it, I'd suggest don't come to an MBA school.
Yeah, that's MBA schools in general. Because I'll tell you what, when we had the first meeting for the Entrepreneur and Venture Capitalist Club, I think there were like 50, 60 people. Hum startup करेंगे अपना end of the year we'll do. How many people actually opted out of placements who are not family business background? Very few.
Very few.
So it does dwindle. So MBA does kill that. So if you are still on the fence about it, chances are you'll end up going for a job. So if you really want to try it, just jump into it if you have the luxury to do that. But I mean, again, it's a personal choice. Depends on what
Maybe
you want
get your company incorporated to have some intrinsic motivation.
fair.
Please give some context to
थोड़ा
this
पैसा
comment
लगाओ
also.
उसके बाद.
I'll let it be.
But okay, so in my personal experience, what I have struggled with is a lot of courses I didn't have context to. So like you can of course go on and say ki accounting is something that I've learned at ISB, but because you come from a very niche background, for example, Chahat, you said manufacturing, right? You can take an industry specialization in manufacturing and you can thrive there, but there is so much else that you're going to struggle with that other people are not going to struggle with.
True.
Because they've done multifaceted work or they've gone extremely in depth, and what we've done is just build it out. We've done extremely execution oriented work over like strategy and broader work. So that is something that I've struggled with. And second, because like this comes from somebody who's sat for placements this year, it's very difficult to explain to somebody that if your business is going well, why do you really want to go outside and work with another company? And it's very difficult to explain it to them that it's just not about the financial motives, it's also about personal growth and learning.
It's very difficult to explain that in the interview also, that if you have a startup, why do you want to come to ISB? They grill you for that question too.
And then they tell you, oh, you don't see personal growth in your own business and learning in your own business. So that's something that we all struggle with. But what do you think? Do you think like your entrepreneurship stint prepared you for ISB, or for you vice versa? Do you think your ISB stint has prepared you for your entrepreneurship adequately?
I personally feel that whatever you may learn, at the end of the day, it's up to you that can you pull it off. So I'll give you an anecdote from my undergrad. So I did not want to do engineering, but as all Indian parents
Majority
say,
of Indian engineers.
you have to. So I went ahead for it, but I never paid a heed to it. So I was kind of average in it. But things that I love, that I really think would work out, those are the things I really put effort into. So I guess if you carry on with that thing without really thinking ki I don't have a background in this, will I be able to do it? And just to go in with the open mind ki I have to learn this for the sake of my business or for the fun. So I always loved numbers, so stats was something I really liked. But economics, on the other hand, in the first term was something that I did not really love that much. But it is important, so you'll have to go through with it, even though if you don't
Yeah.
like it. So I guess it's all about the intrinsic motivation. If you have that, I don't think your background would really affect how you proceed with your future.
Do you think your entrepreneurial stint has made you a little more prepared for
Okay.
ISB? Or how has it prepared you for ISB? Or like how has it made life at ISB easier?
Okay, so I think mix, because वही वाली चीज़ है, what you said, sometimes you don't know areas at all, but then again that's not you alone, that's people coming from defense, they have also not learned these things. So
Correct.
for some subjects it's a starting place, and that's where the peer group also helps. There people like stats was bad for me, but I had friends who were stats majors from their
Aren't you an
undergrad.
engineer?
Let's not talk about that. So my friends were able to help me out with that. So I think learning wise, of course, it's a mix. I have learned some things that I didn't know, but at the same time, I realized that a lot of what we talk about in class, I have done that. I just didn't know that there was a label to it, or there was a term for it, or this is what it's called, right? You're like, oh, we tried into this vertical, this didn't work out, this, and then you're like, oh, now I can say it wasn't our core competency, So that's why diversification was not good for us. So I think it's more just builds you up as to you are able to understand your decision making process better, which helps in the hindsight as well as in foresight as well. So I think it prepared me in a way that I was able to connect what was happening in class to what I have done and what I planned to do. And other than that, personal learning was there. Baki, yeah, that was pretty much
Interesting.
it.
So we had this incident in our accounting class where we were discussing businesses and cash flow and everything. And my professor asked me, ki, what is your cash conversion cycle because you run your own business? And I'm like, ki, what is the cash
is
conversion
cash
cycle?
conversion cycle?
अरे भाई term का क्या मतलब है पता है मेरे को
And then he's like, how are you running a business? That too in retail if you don't know what a cash conversion cycle is. And I'm like, "Ki, give me 2 minutes. Let me read what cash conversion. I'm like, ki, 30 days में पैसा आता है वापस मेरे को.
Exactly, that's the point. I think while working on your business, you learn a lot of things. Maybe the jargons are the things that you come here and learn. So
Correct.
you probably get better at explaining things
Yeah,
to others.
you get polished basically. Now people will look at you also differently. I'm an MBA from ISB, and then you talk better, and then you basically, I feel it elevates your conversations, and like the people that you talk to also, it elevates that segment now.
So very interesting point, Chahat, that like ISB makes you more refined and polished. There's already a debate of like substance versus faff and how B schools teach you how to faff. Do you think like particularly in that context where you say polished, it just means that you know how to bullshit your way out?
I won't say bullshit our way out. I think it's what the world perceives as is good, so you get to that level. It's how English
So
is
you're doing that to the answer also.
See, देखो fact तो है, let's be, but that's traditional B school. That's what it is, right? But I think it's it does FAF se bhi zyada, I personally think that polishing is the right word for it as well, that you are able to articulate much better what you're doing, put it into the business terms that other people understand, right? So from that perspective, I think theek hai, thoda FAF is important in life.
No, but Vibhor, what I'm trying to get to is, do you think like an MBA versus entrepreneurial stint is a game of faff versus building substance? Because once you do your own stint as an entrepreneur, you dive into the complexities of each and every element in your business, you build more substance than being in a classroom where you analyze case studies that are 20 years old. So in that context, I don't mean faff as a negative term. Of course, everybody should be polished. But in that context, do you think getting your hands dirty versus learning from somebody who's gotten their hands dirty is a different ballgame?
See, I don't think MBA really transforms you that much that you lose your inherent way of talking to people. As we talked, it kind of gives you new words to help explain it to people better. Obviously,
So is that all an MBA is?
Kind of.
New words to explain stuff better.
Mostly yes, but it also allows you, as you talked about the faffing part, it allows you to say things that don't make sense, but it gets you there. So
We can say that about your answer
exactly.
also. Things that don't make sense but get you there.
I would like to add isme, I think yes, entrepreneurship or when you get your hands dirty adds a lot more substance to you than learning from somebody else's mistakes 20 years ago from an opinion in hindsight. Of
Correct.
course, I think that is there. Like I said, I think what we're coming back to is a strong foundation, but nothing will beat you actually working, whether it be a job or that. So substance to aata wahin se, but us substance ko how do you showcase it to the world in a better way is where this helps you elevate it even more.
You bring up a very interesting point, like how do you show your substance and metal to the world? Whatever you take away from ISP, how would you now run your business differently in retrospect? Or like you mentioned that you're building a new category and a new vertical in your business altogether. How would you build it differently now that you've come to ISP? And Vibhor, how would you go about building your startup differently as compared to had you started before ISP?
So I think, see, honestly, I don't think a lot of the decision-making process would change because you only realize the feel of your business, your industry, how it works. No amount of readings can help. It's you get scammed in it, you make money off it, and that's how you understand. But I think I will now be a little bit more conscious of how I'm making that decision to get there. And Pele, it was on a way more what I felt like. Now it helps me reflect back into, okay, but does this make sense for me because this is this I have learned, or I at least I can draw some insights from things that I've learned. But I think again, you do it and you figure it out, you'll still make mistakes. People who have done such great MBAs from big schools who we read case studies about at big ass companies, they also make mistakes even when they read. So I think it's just a journey for everybody. But yeah, I think there's more thought when it goes into making a decision.
Very
now.
interesting. Vibhor?
I would say that Question क्या question क्या था?
The question is, how would you go about building your business
Now
differently now that you've come to ISB already?
ठीक है. I'd say that the learnings here that I get from here would somewhere or the other stay in the back of my mind. But I would not say that I would come back to them specifically to think that I should do this in my business. As Chahat mentioned, that the case studies are, I'll say they're like a fluke. The decision that they made at that time, if it had not worked out, the case would have been a different story altogether. So, yeah, you keep things in the back of your head that these things happen, but I think your decision should be based on the current scenario and what
Exactly.
your experience has been.
I agree. So also I think one difference that has now come in is like I will be more open to seeking help because of the nature of how the program at ISB is. You realize there's so much to do and so much that you want to do as well because you see everybody around doing it,
And
right?
so much you can't do.
And so much you can't do. Yeah, of course. Like there's so much to do and so much that you can't do. That you ask for help and you become comfortable seeking help and working in teams. So I think that is something that I'm going to actively incorporate because entrepreneurship in general also means that you're very hands-on with your work and you try to micromanage and you try to dive into each and every element.
100%. I completely agree. That's a very interesting point because you feel like I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to do it. But you're right. Asking for help and understanding that people have, advantages in other places and why not leverage that. I think that's a very important learning, yeah, for sure.
The thing is that if you were asking for help, I don't think how micromanaging is playing a part in that.
Alright, so micromanaging, there are two things to this, right? The first is that since you're an entrepreneur, and especially particularly for me, right, we were just building this out. I started my business 1 year before I started ISB. So a lot of what I was doing was absolutely just 0 to 1, and putting firefighting every day. It wasn't executing long-term vision. It was daily
Small
tasks that I needed to do, right? And I needed to be on top of each and everything because I was responsible for each and everything, especially because we were bootstrapped as a business. I couldn't afford to have a lot of people working under me. Now that I go on back here, there are areas that I will actively seek advice for. So, for example, with respect to my business itself, I was talking to one of my coordinates and I told him that this is the problem that I'm facing. And he said, take a step back and you'll realize that this is where you're missing out on. It's a simple, just advice seeking, if not
Right.
execution seeking, is something that I'm
Yeah.
going to be more
I'll
involved in.
add on to it. Just say, for example, for me, marketing was something that I was working on. So, of course, again, you do the whole thing, you get your hands dirty. But for example, if there's somebody who has come from a marketing background or say had a business or a startup that was purely in marketing, a 30-minute conversation with them helped me at least get that initial learning that would have taken me like probably a week or month or something. Within that 30 minutes, I was able to gain at least a gist of what the area looks like. So I think from that perspective.
Agreed. I mean, let's say that you were to tomorrow start a business that involves aesthetics. I would like to go to somebody who has a background in aesthetics than just starting myself. Somebody like Kaushiki.
So I have an opinion that you go to people, you talk to them, but you take their words as an advice or an
Yes.
Of course.
opinion.
Yeah,
Of
करना
course.
तो खुद ही
But
पड़ता है.
yes, the last final decision should be yours because
sure.
at the end it's your company,
Of course.
and your actions will lead to consequences that you have to bear.
100%. Yeah.
I just think that your decision making becomes a little more informed and a little more evolved in
100%.
the process. Is that with respect to we have very three like different type of profiles that so you and I both come from entrepreneurship. You're going into entrepreneurship here on. I am going into a job here on. You come from a job. You're going into entrepreneurship. What are the tangents that you were thinking on while making this decision? Oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to think about it. Where does the decision making rationale come from?
So for me, again, YLP was a huge factor. It allowed me to take that chance. Deferred placement was also that. Second, I think because I was clear about that I wanted to go into it, I also somehow my rationale also went into that aspect. I think it's more of just honestly speaking, I had the opportunity to take a risk. I have the privilege that I can take the risk. Not everybody, because of financial, familial burdens, etc. It's not easy for everybody. So because I had the opportunity, I wanted to take that risk and not let that opportunity to go. Because I know 10, 15 years down the line, a person like me, I probably would be too comfortable in the way the job goes. I would not take that risk. Right now, because I've gotten my hands dirty, I am in that spirit. So I was like, let's just continue and see what happens, honestly.
I'd say there were two aspects to it for me. The first was finding the right person because the idea that I came too with ISB is not something I have a lot of experience or expertise in.
So had you not found the right person, would you have not pursued entrepreneurship post ISB?
Not immediately, maybe after some time, but yeah, definitely not immediately. So finding that right person, having the same vision for the company is something that kind of inspired me towards moving to entrepreneurship. And the second point, again, as Chahat mentioned, that financials is a very important aspect.
Yeah.
I've worked for the past 5 years. I think I have enough savings for me to have a runway to try this out. I really hope it works out because it's not just monetary for me, but also the kind of impact that I'm hoping to make.
Interesting. So for me, it was one of the aspects was of course financial, because I didn't want to put the burden of an education loan on the business.
Right.
It's doing decently well, and we wanted to reinvest whatever we're making back into the business. So that was one of the tangents. The other, of course, like we've discussed, was learning. I realized like learning opportunities are better outside the business. The business doesn't really need me. I don't really need the business, particularly in just the learning aspects. So that was one of my decision-making factors. But the two of you have brought in a very important point. For you, it was meeting the right people, and for you, it was sticking through that mindset, right? So, what are the opportunities at ISB, or what are the arenas that you were actively involved in at ISB that have allowed you to meet those people, or that have allowed you to continue with that mindset? So, I'm talking about anything in specific, like clubs, events, anything that's shaped your perspective here.
So I don't know how much you remember, but I think for the first 3 months of the course, I was very, very active. I was meeting a lot of people, talking to them about my idea, getting their views about it. That kind of made me pivot. That's how also I got to know about Kaushiki, who's my co-founder right now. Met her, then we again pivoted. So I think having that thought clear, that how you want to go ahead with the course, how you want to plan it, and what you want from your course mates, your professors, is something that you should be really clear before you come to ISB, especially if you're not planning to get a job. If you're planning to get a job, I think you can do it in the flow of things as most of the people are doing it, and they'll help you along. But yeah, having that set mindset about how I want to start this thing and these are the things I need to start this is something that is really important.
Yeah, I think it's how, again, with this vision, then you understand how to leverage what you have. So for me also, talking to a lot of people, validating, because so many people come from different backgrounds, so it was a really good market research, crash market research. You get a lot of people who are have industry experience.
Interesting that you make products for dyslexic and autistic people, and then you said it is really good market research.
No,
talking to
for my new
ISBs.
business, not this one, not this one.
All right.
For my new venture, this though is fine. This though we have professionals in house only. No, for my new venture. So that was one aspect, and I think also the entrepreneurship club was extremely active. Kamya, who's our the president of the entrepreneurship club. Love you, Kamya. And Vani as well, the vice president. And the entire core team, they have been extremely active. And so Kamya specifically, she herself is an entrepreneur. So she understands where to come from and what are the challenges. So they have been extremely active in helping. And that's where you meet like-minded people and have those late night discussions, etc. So I think that has been a really good learning experience. And that is what I have leveraged here. Again, people with the backgrounds that I wanted to talk to, professors. And third, I would say like the new program that they have started, that ISB started, the IVI program. It's also a very good way to get your hands dirty and really build out that business. 6 months, you guys can check it out more, but it's a good way. ISB is trying to be, and it has always been a more entrepreneurship. They want to be an entrepreneurship focused school, so they will help you out in whatever ways that you can. You can set up meetings with professors, they can connect you, etc. So yeah, I think there are a lot of opportunities. You just have to be clear about what you need to find.
ISB definitely is an entrepreneurship focused school, but I think the cohort that we have is more into jobs.
I agree.
100%.
I agree.
I clearly remember the first day at ISB, we were having an orientation session, and the only questions the children had the only questions, mostly YLPs, had in mind was how do we get the right job, how to go about it.
It was disheartening to see.
And all I could think of is, it's your first day. Is this really what you need to be thinking right now? So yeah, as much as ISB supports you, you will have to fight back some
Yeah.
things to get what you want.
I know I've gotten into fights because of this, because I was like, "Bhai, tum yahan pe padho, ye karo, look at this opportunity." And other people like, "Dude, listen, you do you. For us, it's important job." And I mean, fair to each one of us. Like everybody has their own journey, but this is a very true aspect. And I also feel sometimes you feel alienated if you are taking these decisions. I remember during that placement season, I had nobody to talk to, because very few people were, in this boat. Everybody was doing case preps, this, that, everybody was busy. So
Really, your biggest problem was that you didn't have people to
No,
talk to during a
matlab-
placement season, right?
in a sense, discussing whatever. So otherwise, you're stuck in your room, right, the entire time. So for me, it was important to get
Yeah.
out and go back to my work and connect with people who were again like-minded. So what Vibhor was saying, it stifles it sometimes, but you just have to push through.
Fair. What I liked about the curriculum here at ISB is that we have an entrepreneurship specialization. I've not taken a lot of subjects out of that specialization, but the two subjects that I've really liked are part 1 and part 2. So part 1, they teach you how to pitch a startup, how to build a startup, fundamentals essentially. And part 2 is how does a VC think. So then you basically get a comprehensive view of what is happening on both sides of the table. That is something that I really thought was a great outline and has been executed well. But of course, there's always a pushback because people don't want to take entrepreneurship subjects as well. They want to take more strategy-oriented subjects. So, of course, I agree with the both of you there.
Sridham, you can make the call if you want to keep this. I have a experience with the entrepreneurship course that you mentioned. So we had a rescheduled class for Saturday, but I had already booked my tickets to actually go for some primary research for my venture. But because of the rules and regulations that ISB has, I was barred from the attendance for that course, which eventually leads to a grade drop, which I thought was a really stupid thing because I'm in the entrepreneurship course working on my entrepreneurship journey and you're not really helping me. So, but I guess in the end, the professor kind of understood that. So, yeah, even if ISB is not helping you out, I think you can always
Yeah.
reach out to the right people within the administration and the professors that can help you out
Yeah,
with
I
your
think
problems.
admin is strict, but the professors, they have liberty to make decisions on how they want to, so they sometimes help.
Right. So, why don't you talk about the list of things at ISP that you've liked with respect to the entrepreneurship uh, angle of things, essentially? So, for me, there are two things that I really liked. One was the EVC club, Entrepreneurship and Venture Capital Club. And the other is the retail club that I come from, self promotion. Because we've actually gotten in a lot of founders and we've gotten a lot of CXOs. So we've had great sessions there because of these clubs being active throughout the year. Also, like you meet a lot of like-minded people over informal sessions, so you realize, oh, there's someone else who was doing similar stuff to what I was, or there was someone else that who's doing similar stuff to what I want to do post ISP, right? So you have a very clear understanding of where you are and where you want to be. What else have you liked about the entrepreneurship angle at ISP?
So I think what you've covered, I think the speaker sessions, we have a lot of really talented alums, and apart from that also these clubs organize really good speaker sessions where you can connect and have one-on-ones with them. I think those sessions, even the BTC club had really good sessions. EVC though, as always, is amazing. So I think those were good value adds, people like you said. And then events like EVC has a marquee event called Spark where we invited a lot of people and they had EVC members.
Spark winner.
Oh yeah, Spark winners.
Spark organizer.
Spark organizer. Vertical lead.
Retail club. Yeah.
So I think in general, because okay, so one aspect I would say is that because everything here is very student run, so you get a lot of opportunities to do things that on your own. So Spark was completely organized by students from start to finish, whether it be calling the alums, booking the tickets, this, that, everything was from scratch. Or for example, even the podcast is taken up by MCC, they organize it. So I think from that perspective, if you like are very active in the cohort, you do get opportunities to do hands-on things in different areas, which I think again helps you meet more people, connect with more people, etc., etc.
Apart from the two things, the clubs and the events that you talked about, I'd also like to talk about the incubation program at ISP.
Is that Atrium Angels or some other
No,
incubation?
No,
I
Atrium
Ventures-
Angels is a funding.
Is a funding program. How is it different from the incubation program?
So the incubation program is iVentures at D Labs here. That basically helps you through the process of setting up your business. Atrium Angels is an alum-led venture capitalist fund that basically will help you get the initial seed funding for your idea,
And is it
specifically for ISB.
is it only for ISB students and alums, or is it an open fund?
They do invest in other funds also, but they prioritize ISB-led businesses.
Understood.
Yeah, so about D-Lab, so I won't say they'll be actively involved in what you're trying to do, but when you go for help, they will be helpful. They'll give you suggestions. They helped me a lot about how I can go about getting grants for my startup, which is in the sustainability sector. I don't think that I could have found that out on the internet. So, yeah, asking for help to the right people here would really help you.
Yeah, I mean, same. They don't help you do the business, but they'll open up avenues, or they'll at least connect you to the right people where you understand how to proceed. So,
Absolutely. Even I was in touch with a couple of alums over the course of Solstice, and I realized that they work at Zepto and Flipkart, and I just wanted to get my own brand onboarded on those platforms, and it just comes out really handy because the trust deficit that is there is essentially while you're having any business conversation just gets reduced to nil because of the brand value that
Very
the
true.
school brings. One final thing before we close out. What, on the basis of your experience, of course, before ISB and at ISB, like, would you recommend people to come to ISB, not come to ISB? How would you recommend people to do things differently? Because there might be people who are confused about ISB in general. So, why should they come for an MBA? When should they come for an MBA? Final piece of advice.
I think that is their essay answers that we should not be talking about. But
we would create a social impact today.
So I would also add on to my answer a little bit by answering, if you do not come to an MBA school, what is it that you should be doing as an entrepreneur, or what you can do? I mean, we're also very starting out only, so take it with a pinch of salt. Everybody's experience is different, but see, I think again it's a very personal choice. For me, the brand name I felt was good, the cohort, professors, etc. We've covered those points, and this 1 year I wanted to take that chance. Again, age is also a factor there, that I had the opportunity to experiment later on. But I would also say, if you do not have the bandwidth to come to a professional B school, that is okay. We live in a day and age today where there is enough resources where you can learn everything. Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, etc. They have these really, I think school has this 20-minute ka pura videos about how the business failed or worked, etc. That's what we learn in strategy also. So it's a short version of that. Of course, it's more in-depth, more research-oriented in a school, but you get the gist of it. And again, get your hands dirty is how you learn. Baki, and whether it comes to networking, if you think the alum network, वगैरह, today again there you have opportunities to set up meetups yourself, or for example a PM meet in some city or some district or area. So you have opportunities to meet people. So I think entrepreneurship in general, and MBA also to a certain extent, always is about your intrinsic motivation, right? How much you put into it, you'll get out. So even without a B school, you can do fine. You can build those same setups for yourself through your own effort as well.
I know I've said that a lot, but I agree with Chahat. I don't think I have any additional points. She pretty much covered it up.
Alright, so that's that for episode 6 of the ISB show. Thank you so much for your time and wish you the very best.
Thank you so much for being such a good host.
Great host. All the best for your venture.
Yes.
Yes. All the best to you too for all your ventures.